Okay, it is the appointed time for the March 16th Auburn Planning Commission meeting, and we will now call it to order and ask the secretary to call the roll.
Dana Camp.
Here.
Nanette Reese.
Here.
Robin Bridges. Warren McCord.
Here.
Bob Rittenbaugh.
Here.
Wendy Birmingham.
Here.
David Wisdom.
Here.
Joseph Astrup.
Here.
Phil Chancellor.
Here. We have on our agenda what we call citizens communication, where anyone that wishes to address the planning commission on a planning issue that is not on the agenda. We only have 2 items on the agenda tonight, except the consent agenda, which are minutes. Is there anyone here that wishes to bring anything before to the attention of the planning commission at this time? I will open that point, our meeting. Seeing no one, we'll close that citizen communication. And we have no old business, so we can start with the consent agenda, which tonight only consists of the February 6th and February 9th minutes of our packet and regular meeting.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And it carries. The first item of new business is a conditional use, Ridgecrest Bedell Place. And will you make my presentation, please?
Yes, good evening, everyone. As you mentioned, this is a request for a recommendation to City Council for a conditional use approval of an institutional, specifically community housing services and daycare and office uses. The property is located at 945 North Donahue Drive. It is approximately 21 acres, and it is in the redevelopment district. This request, you originally considered it in March of 2021. It was approved at that time, and the conditional use approval expired in September of 2022, and so it's just coming back to you again for approval. Here is a site plan showing the phasing of the redevelopment. It is proposed to, the first 2 phases will include the property at the north. Phase 1 is 62 units. Phase 2 will be 44 units. And there's a potential phase 3 down at the southern end of the property. And it is proposed for 70 senior housing units. The right-of-way for, let me go back, Pride Avenue, Booker Street, and Julie Avenue will be vacated. The entrance of Crosby Circle at North Donahue Drive will be eliminated, and these streets will be made private. And staff does recommend approval, no conditions, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Amber? Thank you, Amber. Is there anyone from the Housing Authority wish to bring anything else to attention about this project?
Hey, Brett Basquin with the Foresight Group, representing the applicant here. Ms. Tolbert with the Housing Authorities here. Just wanted to briefly say, Mr. Rittenbaugh asked during packet, there is a game plan for residents, during construction. The same plan as last time, so there is a plan for that. Like we discussed, our first phase is phase 1, and that's more of the immediate project schedule right now, going after funding for phase 1, and then phase 2 and phase 3 would be done over time as well. But happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Can you give an approximation for the build out of all 3 phases?
From a timing perspective,
Yeah.
Right.
I guess it's budget driven, I assume.
Grant.
A grant, yeah, it's,
well, yeah. So, yeah, you want to address that? Okay.
yeah, please.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Wesley Smith. I'm with the Michaels Organization, leading this development. The first phase we intend to begin as soon as we get some sort of a response regarding a financing application for low-income housing tax credits. Once we begin that phase, we will submit, or our intent is to submit a second phase in the next round that becomes available. So hopefully that is the following
Are we
year.
talking months or are we talking years?
It would be years. It would be years, mostly because the tax credit application process is rather intensive.
Hi, I just wanted to address the commissioners. I'm Sharon Tolbert, CEO of the Auburn Housing Authority. I'm here to answer any questions you may have on behalf of the Housing Authority. This redevelopment is personal to the board and myself. Our intent is to continue with the great redevelopment of the Auburn community, particularly with the Northwest Auburn community, to reinvest in our families, to reinvest in our communities, and this benefits the city of Auburn as a whole. So any questions you may have for us, please let us know. We're here to answer them. Thank you so much for your consideration.
This is a conditional use and therefore requires a public hearing. So I will open the public hearing now to see if there's anyone who wishes to ask questions or raise any points regarding this proposal. And there appears to be no one, so we will close the public hearing and,
I'll move to approve CU 2023-002 Ridgecrest Bedell.
I'll second.
all right, the motion's been made and seconded. That's be approved, sent to city council with our recommendation for approval. Is there any need to discuss the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. And the motion carries. The second item on our agenda is Bragg Avenue mixed use.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is a request for a conditional use request for conditional use approval for performance residential development, more specifically a 4-unit multiple unit development with first floor commercial, and the applicant is also proposing one waiver, which is to reduce the buffer yard requirement. So the property is located at 152 Bragg Avenue, right between Sanders and North College Street. And the adjacent property to the east, west, and south are also zoned CRDW with NRD to the north. It is consistent with the future land use of mixed use 2 preservation and the purpose of the CRDW zoning district. The applicant is seeking a waiver to reduce the eastern property boundary buffer yard from 10 feet to 5 feet, and it's meeting all buffer yard requirements at the western and northern boundaries. And you can see that highlighted in yellow right there. Staff recommends approval with conditions, and none are specific to note.
Is there anyone who will speak to this from the developer standpoint?
Brett Baskin, Foresight Group, just happy to answer any questions. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and we have a recommendation for approval. So, again, happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Brett, how are the, you may not have this all worked out yet, but how do you get to the second story
Yeah, there'll be stairs on the backside.
on the backside?
Yeah.
External stairs,
What's that?
exterior stairs.
I don't know if that's been worked out on whether it's exterior or interior, but we kind of have it planned for either. You know what I mean? We're working on the floor plans now, but it's kind of like we got to make sure we can get the use, and then we'll figure out that. So, but yeah.
All right, thank you. This requires a public hearing as well. I'll open that public hearing now. Is there anyone who wishes to address this particular proposal?
I'm Aaron Schmidt. I own the property to the west, and I don't have a problem with it. I actually think it is needed in the city to have more commercial stuff, especially close in. And the waiver is kind of, to me, my side, they can have the 5-foot, but it's only a 5-foot buffer yard, and on the east side, because there's a house there, that has to be 10 feet. But the house is really a tear down, so I mean, to me, it's basically an empty lot as well. So anyways, I just want to come and say, I support it and would like to do something kind of similar to.
So your property's to the east.
Mine's to the west.
To the west.
So yeah, the other one's to the east.
Anyone else? No one? So we'll close the public hearing and continue the discussion with the panel.
Move to forward to city council with a recommendation for approval with conditions.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded that we forward this to the city council with a recommendation for approval with all conditions, compliant with all conditions.
Is this the use and the waiver?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, by the, yes.
Okay.
So, is there any discussion of the motion?
I just have a question about what drove the waiver. What's the reason for the, why do we want the, what was the plan, why are you requesting the waiver? For the setback?
On the east side?
Yeah.
But it's, yeah, just for the landscape strip. You know, it's essentially a rental property next door. We're 5 foot next to, I think it's just some variability. When we start talking about the urban core, and I know you talk about that, you know, this is down close to the core. In the true urban core, we don't have landscape requirements. So this is kind of like a tweener, but just in between like our property and theirs, it's 10 feet on that side, but against the vacant one, it's 5. Normally, it's vice versa. Normally, we have a bigger setback against a vacant lot and a smaller setback against somebody else who's already there. So, so we're basically trying to, one, you know, maximize the parcel as best we can, but in the vision of, I think, what Bragg and all that stuff, they want it to look like, I don't think at the end of the day, I think it'll eventually redevelop, and nobody wants this, you know, large landscape strip in between as well. So it allows us to pick up some more parking spaces. That actually allows us to get it to be a 3-story building, you know, to have some height that they're wanting, you know. So, you know, the zoning in this area, especially along this corridor, especially on Bragg, when I talked to staff before about this, I think this is part of the zoning we really need to really look at, because in this zone for Bragg, we have suburban zoning requirements, yet we want an urban appeal. And ideally, this building would be closer to the street, but I can't move it closer to the street because I have a 20-foot minimum setback that's in the corridor. So this is one of those tweeners that I feel like we're trying to do as best we can with what we got, but we're trying to design an urban design with suburban requirements, but the suburban requirements is not what the city wants. So we're kind of caught in between, so.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, I think we've
Motion
had a
is
motion and it has been seconded. If there's not any more discussion, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
No.
And,
Just kidding. I'm sorry. That was an accident. I apologize.
all right, strike that. All right.
All in favor?
The
All
chairman
in
has no
favor.
communications other than the ballgame starts at about 4:30. Staff communication. With